Good morning, Ultra developers. Today we have
Morning.
another exciting episode of Weekend Workshop, number 31, maybe. This week we will be talking about the game packaging system is implemented. Version 097 is going to launch very soon with particles, decals, and the finished game publishing. Reap Blue and I came up with some really nice physics for walking around and holding objects it's pretty cool stuff, actually. I have a couple of optimization ideas, or at least one, and also just a proof of concept for something that I'm calling Ultra GL. So, plus whatever questions and things that you want to talk about this weekend. Let's start with the game publishing system. So here is a new project, and then I just published. So what you do is you go up here, publish, and then easy. In Lua, the password is set automatically. In C++, there's a password that is generated for each project, and it gets added into your code and into the project settings. So it's really nice because every time you create a new C++ project, there's just a unique password there. The system, it puts everything into a zip file called data.zip. Let's take a look at that. And all your game files are there. They're all password protected. It's using AES 256 encryption standard. So it's very, very secure. Military grade security. Check this out. Oh, comment. Exported from Ultra Engine. Wow. You can actually, there's also some new commands in the package class. You can actually add, you can add comments like you just saw on the whole archive. You can add comments on a per file basis, and those will all be viewable in any zip file viewer. You can now create a package, which we didn't have that for a while, but now you can create a package from scratch. You don't have to use tar or any other program, an external program or library to use it. And we also fixed a long-standing problem where it just wasn't working on some people's computers. Actually, I really want to thank you and SpiderPig for their help resolving that issue. That was kind of a difficult one. And let's see. I don't know where the bug is. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Yeah, 4 pages. Over 1,000 views of this. And I thought the problem was related to the user's language. I thought it was like a Unicode problem with the file name, but that wasn't the case at all. It's just his computer, there was a problem, but his computer was just uniquely good at catching that problem. So you especially was a superstar with this, and I really appreciate his help getting this worked out, because I was never able to produce the error on my computer. Now, when you do this, here's your final game files, and then when you run it, it just rips all the files right out of the zip file. And there's a little bit of extra protection. Yeah, it just works perfectly. There's a little bit of extra protection so that files cannot be read directly with Lua. So if you have your data.zip file and somebody else takes it for a Lua project, if it's a C++ project, then it's your own unique password, so you don't have to worry about anything. But if somebody else takes this data.zip file and runs it in an interpreter running their own scripts, they cannot read the files directly out of the archive. And if they do load the any assets like models or textures from the archive, those assets have a flag inside them that restricts them so that they cannot be saved again. So the protection actually is pretty good, quite good actually, and we did it in a really nice way. I'm very happy. This was kind of a puzzle to figure out how to protect this, and I think it's very important for your game assets to be secure. For assets for any enterprise products, need to also be secure as well, and this does a really good job of that.
They are so great,
What's
you
about
can be proud of them.
folders which are not standard, so custom folders?
What's that?
Are they? What's about custom folders? Are they also get packed?
Oh, everything gets packed right now. So the way I did it is I put everything, all folders in the project get put into a single zip file. But what's really great about this system is that the entire thing is implemented in Lua. So this is just a Lua script that you can modify to your heart's content, or you might want to like make a copy of this and then have another menu item or intercept the same menu event. And you can totally customize the way it's done. So if you want to split that up into a lot of different zip files, however you want, you can do that. If you want to make your own archive format for your game content, you can do that. I think zip is pretty good, but so it pretty much like met all the conditions that I was trying to go for when we started this. So very happy with that.
Yeah. One thing it's like I want is to split the packages up for Steamworks, because you don't want to upload like 5 gigabytes every time you have a small update. That's really annoying for your players and you. And a lot of modern game engines have that issue. They fix one small thing, but they have to re-upload the entire game, and that's really annoying. So hopefully we can make something standardized where it can actually split packages to a point where if you update like a script or something, you don't have to re-download the models and textures and everything.
Right. So what Steam does, it uploads partial files, I think. Like if only part of a file has changed. And I don't know how smart it is. Like if the file contents shift, like if it's just like one section is different, then it probably deals with that very well. If the entire contents of the file are shifted, which is easy to do if you're changing zip files around, it's just kind of random. Like on average, 50% of the content of the zip file will be different because of the order of the files. I think the best way to deal with that is probably to split it up per directory.
That's what I was doing for Cyclone. I had like one that had things that I thought will never change at all, like my shaders folder. And then I had like one for maps, and then I had one for materials and models. And that kind of helped cut the download times down. But if you update like a material, you have to re-upload the entire material file, like that package. I kind of just did it per like what it was. I think I had common, which was like shaders and fonts and stuff, and then I had like materials and models, and I think I had scripts. I don't know. I stopped using it because it just became a pain to repackage everything. So now everything's out in the open, and I don't really care at this point. But it's just something to think about, because now since everything's open, my updates only kilobytes in size when I do update.
Right.
Because
Well, okay, so there's two ways to deal with that. I think the simplest way is, if you have a game with a lot of stuff going on, it would not be difficult to just take all the subfolders, like let's say you have like a ton of, okay, most of your game's data is going to be textures, right? What you could
Right.
do is have subfolders, like take each subfolder here and just make this materials1.zip, materials2.zip, materials3.zip, and so on. That would eliminate, I mean, that would cut down your upload times by like, I mean, that would give you like a 10x decrease in upload.
Right.
There's another way to do it is, I think Valve's packaging system.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up. It does that automatically. It's actually made for Steam Pipe and everything. They optimized that for Steam Pipe with the 2013 update for Half-Life 2 and other games.
Yeah, I think what they do is if they add a new file or replace a file, I think they just leave the old data by default, or they mark it as being like as being available now, but they keep the positions of all the data in place. Because some of the APIs for that I was looking at, they have a defragment option, which only makes sense if it's being treated like a hard drive. The downside of that, of course, is your game size is just going to get bigger and bigger every time you add a file or every time you modify a file. Sometimes,
Until you reset everything and just start from scratch.
right, and then eventually you're going to have to defragment it, and then at that point the whole thing is changed, and then you have to upload the whole thing again. So I mean, they both have like their positives and negatives. I favor zip files because it's a known standard, and when it's possible, I always prefer to use like an existing standard rather than making up our own file formats. It's not always possible, and sometimes it is better to use a custom file format like we did for 3D models. But for zip, I'm pretty happy with it.
For me, it's crashing.
What's that?
For me, it's crashing. I was testing it with my project.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of big, like 50 gigabyte or something, and it's crashing.
It's crashing.
When
Okay.
it's creating, yeah, it shuts down the engine, complete the editor, everything.
Okay. If you especially if you can like produce the problem in a smaller example, that would be super helpful. But if not, if I can access your project, then I can take a look, and it'll be pretty easy for me to debug that.
Yeah, sure, I can send it to you so you can test it with a bigger project.
Yeah, that would actually be really great.
Yeah. And I think what might help with that is cutting your source files, your PNGs, your FBXs, your GLTFs, your Blender files, your GIMP files, your Photoshop files. I think that will actually take a lot of files out.
Yeah, let's see, what do we have? We marked. So yeah, by default, it's including DDS, PNG, JPEG, TGA, bitmap, text, GLTF, GLB. It includes a lot of extra stuff by default because I don't want people to, like, I want it to work by default, and then you can optimize it if needed. And it might be a good idea to turn these into user-defined options in like the project settings. That would actually be a really good idea. I think we can do that next.
Do you have also a function to fallback if the system is not finding the right extension? Because this could be maybe the problem.
Well,
If the
it tends to be based on what it does is it goes through. Let's walk through this code. Okay, scan folder, scan project. Let me make sure I'm got this right. Okay, so first thing it does is it scans the project, and what it does is it says scan folder source code. Okay, it's scanning all the source code files. That means all of these files like CPP and Lua files. It saves those, it loads those, and it saves the entire source code into into a list of strings. Okay, we'll use that later. Scan folder. That recursively loads all the directories in the project, and it looks for scene files. And when it finds a scene file, well, a scene file is just a JSON file with some binary data at the end of it. So it goes through all of the keys in the JSON structure. Scan JSON file. Let's see what that does. And it looks for table values, and then it scans tables. Okay, what does that do? Scan table value. Okay. Well, for all the pairs in that table, if the type is a string, then it does a little special magic, and it considers that this might be a file that is being defined. If it's one of the recognized file types, then it adds that file into, there it is, info files, file name.true. It's done this way rather than a linear list, so that you can have you can quickly access that file name and see if it's included or not. It adds all of those file names in. Okay. Scan folder source code. And then scan JSON, return info files. Okay, so the result of scan project is it returns a list of files. That's how it figures out all the files that are actually used. Actually, I mean, if you're more confident that your project doesn't have a lot of extra files, you could actually skip that step and just package all files of a certain type into a big zip file. That would also work. And then so here it is creating the package. Package set comment. This is how I marked it, that this was exported from Ultra Engine. I think that's kind of cool. Let's see. Why does it do a copy file? Oh, okay. This is for EXEs and DLLs.
And you're ignoring the bug stuff.
Right. Okay. Now here's where it adds the files into the archive. For KV in pairs, files do data, load the buffer. If data does not equal null, then package add file kdata. We might want to add a collect garbage right there. That might be a good idea to do, because that data is going to get bigger and bigger, but the Lua virtual machine will not see that, so it won't increase the Luas. It won't increase the memory usage of Lua, so it won't. You'll have all these handles that are holding on to large amounts of data. So this collecting the garbage right here would actually be a good idea. But that's where the zip file. That's how files are added. Copy plugins folder, copy modules folder, if it exists. Yeah. So that's how it works. It's pretty nice and highly customizable.
You should maybe add a progress bar or something, because it's also freezing the editor. And then if you have a big project and if you export it, you don't know the current state or something.
Yeah, that would be nice. What you would have to do, though, it is doable, but in order to make that happen, what you would have to do is create when this event is hit, then you would want to create a timer, and then have like an update function that continues this process gradually. Maybe do one file at a time or whatever. You would have to break it up like that, because this is all in an event. This is all inside the event, and if you change a progress bar, it won't actually be visible until the event queuing system is triggered again. So it's kind of hard to think, but that's just the way operating systems work. But that would be a good improvement in the future, actually.
It's also not multi-threading, right?
No, Lua doesn't do multi-threading.
Maybe it would better than if it's in C++.
Well, then you lose all the flexibility, and I don't think it's not actually processing like CPU processing. I don't think is really going to form a bottleneck. So I don't know if multi-threading would actually be faster, because it's all going to be about it's all about hard drive write speed.
Yeah, but if you export a lot of files and then the editor is freezing, it's also not that cool. And people will yeah, when people don't notice, they think the editor crashed or something, then they press buttons and make the things even worse.
Yeah, well, making it like doing the event timer, like I said, that would be that would definitely be a good improvement that would solve that issue, and it would definitely make the interface better. I'm not sure if multi-threading is. I don't actually know if writing multiple files to a hard drive on separate threads is faster than writing a single file. I'm not sure how hard drives, in
No,
that detail. I don't know how hard drives work.
I'm not meaning like this. I'm meaning that it's not running in the GUI thread. That
What's
you
that?
copy, and that it's not copying in the GUI in the UI thread. Right now, it's copying in the files in the UI thread. This makes that you can't use the editor anymore.
Um, it's not really the thread. It's just the point. It's the point in the program where it's happening. Um, and we
But
also
you know
don't
what I'm,
we also
you
don't
know what
know
I mean.
like how much time is being spent gathering the files and how much time is actually being spent compressing the files. That would be an interesting. Yeah, it would be interesting to see like how much time is this actually taking. We could get the time here at the start of this and then wait for it to finish and then print out like how much time that took and then compare that to how much time the compression actually takes, because if this is step is fast, if this happens in like less than like 3 seconds and this is the slow step, this is going to be pretty slow, like the compression. I don't know how fast this step is. That would be some good knowledge to have. It would also it would actually also be possible to set this up with tar. Um, like and in that sense you would sort of have something running in the background. That would be another way to do it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the issue is that like another suggestion I had was make this a open source C++ program and then just tell the editor, hey, run this program. And this way if the publisher dies, the editor doesn't go down with it.
yeah, I mean, several different ways this could be improved. Um, I'm saying like we need to like it would be better to investigate this and find out what the actual get some more information about the timing on these things before diving into one solution that might not actually be necessary.
Yeah, but
Well,
it will be necessary that you actually don't freeze the editor.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like there's several ways to do that.
one thing you could do is that you can load Cyclone and package Cyclone and see how it does there, because that's a real world example. It's not an Ocean Engine project, and the texture sizes and everything are going to be smaller, but that's a good like demonstration of, because that's a real full game. You know what I mean? That's not my project 39 or whatever.
How big is your project?
Well, the one on Steam is smaller because I don't ship the source assets or anything. But my actual like the repo, like the actual like GitHub repo is a few gigabytes big because it has like my Blender files, it has my GIMP files, it has.
I think you should aim for project size like 30 gigabytes or more. Because with PBR and all the stuff and 4K textures, you will easy it. the 4 GB
Well, I think we
in a
should.
modern engine.
Well, yeah, but I think we should do a step. If it can't package Cyclone, then we have a problem.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, you definitely want to test it. We want to do some more testing at scale. What I'm saying is like this step right here, even with a large number of files, it might be very fast. If we can do this step very quickly, then it would be fairly easy. There's several different ways I can think of to just take this. Then all we have is the compression step, which I'm guessing is I think it's probably this is probably like 95% of the time. I think this probably huh?
How you create the package? Are you copy the files into a different folder and compress it, or stream it, or do you stream it directly into the zip?
Well, I'm loading the file into memory, and then using the libzip library to compress that into the zip archive. I don't know the details of how that actually works, but libzip. Well, I went through like 3 or 4 different zip libraries looking for something that supported AES 256, looking for something that supported Unicode for file names, looking for something that supported large zip files bigger than 4 GB, and it was really hard to find. Libzip in the end turned out to be the one. I suspect, I haven't tested it yet, but I suspect that this step right here probably happens in 3 or 4 seconds at most, even in large projects. And this step here might take I could see this taking, I mean, how long does it take to compress a zip file with encryption? Like a big zip file? I mean, this could take like 5 minutes on big projects, maybe even more. So if that does, I think the next step is to actually test the relative timings of these processes, and then think about, if it turns out that this is by far the slow step, then it would not be too hard to put this on a timer, or yeah, and actually, if it was, it could be on a timer, or it could also, it might make more sense actually to use tar to do that compression. I could look into that too, because I think everything else in this routine is really fast. So it's customizable. We can, and looks pretty easy. I think it'll be pretty easy to improve it further. But I mean, the big thing is we have a solution for Lua that works, for encrypting assets, and it works really, really well. I'm really happy how that turned out.
Yeah, I like the idea, like what Reap was saying, that to run it in a different program and launch this program.
Right, because it doesn't need to have to be C++ program. It just needs to be a separate process.
You could use, for example, C# or something, Net 8. It got a really good compression library built in, and you have no problems with large files. Yeah.
You could even launch an instance of the editor itself with a command line argument that says run this script, and then have a copy of the editor running the published script. That would be another way to do it.
That'd probably be the quickest solution. A dirty solution, but
why? How is that? That's
because you're reloading the entire editor again just to run a Lua script.
Yeah. Is that a problem? It's only 30 megabytes.
I think the idea from Reap is really good, to be honest. To have program, or that the editor can run programs with arguments. And then
yeah, because I have a plugin that compiles my Lua to Lua C files, and if you just make an Ultra Engine project and just say, hey, just run this publishing script, that way you have the best of both worlds where it's in its own process, it's in its own container, but it's still accessible to the user where they can modify it to the heart's content. And the editor itself won't call it, but the publisher got...
Whoa.
What?
What if we did this?
Okay.
See what I just did?
Okay, now implement the function.
What if we had that? You wouldn't be able to get the result right away. It wouldn't work that. But I bet it would be possible to do like an asynchronous. That would be really interesting because then it would be running, on a separate thread in the background.
And then you can have your progress bar and you can watch.
Yeah. But you can't add into a zip library multi-threaded files.
What's that?
You can't add multiple files at the same time into a zip library if you stream it into it.
Why
So
would
it's
you need
not
to?
it's oh no, you can't. If you say okay, package add async add file, then you add every file async, which means that you add them parallel.
Yeah, but that's calling that command is takes like zero time, even if you do it 2,000
Yeah,
times.
but it's not working. You can't add into a zip file. It's not possible to add into
No,
a
but
zip
it
file.
would just create like a list. It would create a linear list, and then all of that would be happening on a. It would just add it to a queue, and then it would just happen on a separate thread. Or you could do like async add files, something like that. Async create package. Yeah, there's a few different ways this could be done. Yeah, and I think there's some really interesting ideas here. I'm not sure what the best approach is. I agree, like this needs to be made more scalable, but the hardest part of this, I think, was just figuring out how to deal with Lua projects, because with that you've got that was pretty tricky to figure out, because with a Lua project, it just distributes the executable, and it was very difficult to figure out a way to make a zip file without giving away the password, because how does it get the password? Well, I found a way. I think it's very secure. I don't think anybody's going to be able to hack it.
So does the end user have to set the password in the game, or is just auto magic now?
In C++, it's set up automatic. So like in the main file, it will load any zip files that it finds, and it will apply that password. You can change it if you want, but one is automatically generated for you. In Lua, it just works and you don't have to do anything.
So the main script you have in the build right now can be... So the end user doesn't have to load the package and say, this is my password, right?
Nope, not in Lua.
All right.
That's all taken care of before the script even starts. Now, it is possible to load, if you have somebody else's zip file. With Lua, you can load the content out of that. You can load a model or a texture out of that. But if you do that, you cannot save them. The save routine will reject it. You cannot call read file. Normally you can call read file. You can call package read file. Blah blah blah. But if it's this will not work if it's a password protected zip file. You can do this with C++, but in C++ you would have to have the password already in order to read it, so that doesn't matter.
What does the C++ code look like? Is there a loop to read the packages before
Yeah. Let's see. Let's take a look at that.
That's probably why you run a hard drive series. You have like 100 different projects.
Probably. Okay. Load packages. Here it is. So
Mhm.
this password was just generated.
Mm-hmm.
Looks pretty secure to me.
All right. So if someone were to like open my program in like a hex editor, could they extract that password?
No. I think
Okay.
probably not. In like the executable?
Yeah, because people are sneaky.
Is it saved as string?
Let's see.
Because when I was in testing with Cyclone, people were like,
It's a
I'm-
string. I think you can read this.
Okay. What we can probably do is
Mhm.
take that and make it somewhat algorithmic.
yeah,
Yeah, you could obfuscate it that way. Let's take a look at something else.
I'm just bringing it up because when I was testing Cyclone, I made my password something ridiculous, and someone like opens my exe in a hex editor, and it's like, why is your password like this? I'm like, oh,
Okay.
Here you could. I mean, if someone is recompiled or something, then yeah, there is no 100% security, but
Okay, that's you guys raise a good point. Let's compile this and take a look. One failed. Oh, my path is set to okay, we can take a look at it later. That's actually a really good thought. Let's see if let's try opening some of these executables and seeing how easily we can get to that password. Because I can think of, if we need to, I can think of some other ways to make this so it only exists temporarily in memory.
I posted something. In C sharp, there is something called secure strings, which are especially made for this. And there is also something in C++.
Secure strings.
Stack Overflow.
Okay, cool. Okay, it looks like this, people who specialize in this have already thought about this, so that's actually another good thing we can do. I think it'll work. Thank you for mentioning that. Uppercase at, yes, you can use DLL in Lua. It's not super easy, but it is possible. In fact, that is how Lua modules are created. So our Lua socket.dll, that executes Lua code. It's tricky, but it is definitely possible. In fact, we have some examples of this on our GitHub page. Let's go over there. Repositories. Modules. Yeah, here's some. Yeah, actually, OpenAI. I did that as a DLL as well. This is a really good module to look at because this gives you an example of using Lua to call. low disk space, to call a web API. Of course, I guess you could do this with curl as well, because curl comes standard on Windows 10, 11 now, and it's always been on Linux, and I think it's probably on Mac as well. Yep. Okay, let's see. So, any other questions about the packaging?
Nope, I'm just taking it. It's still a work in progress, but at least something's there now. So
Yeah, very. We have some very good ideas that came up today. Let's see. Okay, Reap, if you're ready, would
yeah,
you like
I'm
to?
right.
Okay, we came up with working together. We came up with some pretty cool physics for picking up objects, and it's worth taking a look at.
Let me just boot up everything. All right. So, I was looking over the components we had, and I figured we should just start Stretch and focus everything around the player this time around and go from there. So in this example, we have some doors that are not programmed right, but we have a box and we have a player. So the player is just a cylinder because it could probably still be a pivot. I just wanted a cylinder so I can easily more select it, and you actually get a bounding box if you use a model.
It's easier to see.
Yeah, it's easier. This is actually should be the same size as the default collider for a player physics. So I went to Legworks and got the dimensions of the shape size and made a model in Blender and exported it. So the player starts because we have the first person controls, which same as before. You could change the height, the eye height, the crouch height, the mouse smoothing, which probably doesn't work because I'm using a different looking algorithm right now. The look speed, the move speed, the jump boost, the jump lunge. So this would just by itself just give you a standard first person controller. But player interaction actually allows you to interact with things. That means you can use buttons, you can, in the future, open doors, and you can pick up objects. So I just want to make sure I'm all compiled. Yes, I am.
So this is a separate component that's been added in conjunction with the first-person player controls.
Correct. So I did this way because if you making like a Call of Duty kind of thing, you probably, or you just want to just have first-person player, you kind of maybe don't want interaction. Maybe you don't want player pickup. Maybe we can add a bool here where it says don't allow pickup globally.
I think it's a great idea because it keeps both source codes smaller, and anytime we can have separation like that, it's good.
Yeah, and for physics, we have an interactive component, which you can say. So an interactive component just has a use function attached to it. So if you interact with it, it could be a button, and then you could say, and then with the flow graph, you can be all right, on interaction, I need you to do this. And then pickup tells the component, hey, you can pick me up, you can move me around. So we're gonna run the game right now. And same, you can get your first person perspective, and then you can actually pick it up. And
look how fast that is.
Yep. And I can swing my mouse around, and it's very, very stiff. I can bounce it against the wall, and everything just translates correctly. And the rotation is actually fixed, so it's kind of like in Half-Life 2. You can actually put boxes on top of things quite easily. And this is a lot better than what I had in Cyclone. I wanted to make, and that's just a test, but that's just a brush connected to a joint we gotta look at. But so what's going on is that this box is not really a physics object. So I'm just gonna comment that out and rerun this. So what's actually going on here is I thought about this and then Josh brought it up, but I didn't know how to implement it. Was that when you pick an object up, you're seeing a static model representation as a dummy. and the real object is what's being moved by physics. And the dummy moves where the physics item is, and and it at first didn't work, and then Josh had to fix something and now it works great. The only issue is that it's only works like this in release mode. In debug, it's kind of broken. So I don't know if we should only
that's because I only updated the release library.
Oh, okay.
So it was
Okay.
it's not it's missing collisions.
Right, but as you can see, it updates and doesn't collide with the player. So that's one thing that's kind of a trade off, is that you can't run against this and your body hits against the box like in FO2. It kind of goes through it like in Portal 2.
There's probably some ways
Or-
we could deal with that.
Yeah, it's a non-issue. It just looks ugly when you can put your head through a model. But Portal 2, actually, what it does is it actually disables collision, probably because the pickup system had to be redone for multiplayer. So if you were to do this in Portal 2, the box will actually go behind the player, or it actually does like a swooping animate motion around the player. So if you were to do this in Portal 2, it would actually go behind you and then down. Ooh, that moved.
No, I know what we can do. We can make it so that the static object can still have collision, even though it doesn't have any physics, and it won't collide with anything, but things will collide with it. That's actually what we want to do, because if something falls on it, you also want dynamic objects to the visible box will still be static, but dynamic objects like that, or like the player itself, will still collide with it. So I think that would actually work really well.
Yeah, and then another thing we have to think about is triggers, and how we want like this example. I want this button. I want to be able to put this box on this button, and the button goes down, and then the door opens. So right now we can detect the actual physics object, but because this is such a delay between where the player sees the box and where the physics is, like it won't actually trigger until the box is until the carried object and the dummy are synchronized. So that's something.
Again, if the button is a dynamic object, if we do what I'm saying, then it might actually work. Of course we'll have to have some way of preventing collision between the visible object and the physics object.
There was like an overlap feature in LEDWorks. It was only for Lua, and you could like control per entity collision rules. Maybe we need something like that.
Maybe. Yeah, so the basic idea here is that I kind of realized that there's no way, no matter what we do, there's no way the physics will ever be as snappy as we would like them to be if the only way to do that would be to make them way too powerful, in which case you would have problems with collision and stuff. Like, I don't think a real-time game physics system is ever able to have like that perfectly snappy behavior like we're seeing with the visible object. And I suspected that Valve and other games, but I was thinking of like Valve's games in particular. I suspected that they're probably using like a visible object. When you pick something up in like Portal or whatever, is there any waving back and forth? Like, is there any inertia when you? Yeah. Does it just stay perfectly in front of you?
It stays perfectly in. But I tested this in Half-Life 2 and Portal 2. It actually looks like it's like locked to where you're looking.
I'm sure they're doing something like this.
And then, of course, when it bounces around, it'll like get dragged behind. One thing I have to still do,
and then as soon as it touches a wall, it just starts spazzing out and going crazy.
One thing I do have to do is have you drop when that case happens. But
so there's with this approach, there is quite a bit of difference between like where the physics object actually is and where the visible object is. but that doesn't matter because as soon as the physics object comes in contact with something, as soon as a collision occurs, then the visible object starts getting pulled to match. It starts matching its orientation with the
Right.
physics object. Not immediately, but over the course of like several frames. That's when those
Right.
two things are what's the word? Not consolidated, but there's some smart sounding word. I can't remember it right off the top of my head though. Where those two things are resolved.
But why do you have two objects?
Because we need physics, but we can't. It's not possible to have game physics that are as snappy as we would like without breaking collision.
I tried. I spent the entire Cyclone's development on it, and then I spent like 3 weeks before trying to put in this project. This is the best system so far.
Yeah, and when you have that, like when he was showing it first, when you hide the physics object like he had, then you never see
Yeah, let's undo that.
you never see the delay, and then as soon as it comes in contact with something else, that's when those two objects are resolved, and so it actually works really well.
Yeah, 'cause this is what you're actually going to see. You're actually going to see this.
Yeah, see, I mean, yeah, it looks really good. And that way, that's how you have like that perfectly snappy, locked to the screen appearance and still interactive with the world. Yeah, that works so well.
Yeah, it just needs a little bit more tidying up. But the plan is to ship this with the SDK, so you guys don't have to do this. So you can just have a pickup controller, and it'll just work. Because that was really
That
annoying.
works so well.
I just got to fix that, and then what else? What did we say we need? I need to fix distance, so you can't like. And then we need to fix how triggers. We need to figure out how to do the triggers. Oh, the collision, so can't stick your head in it. That's right.
Yeah. So let's see. Anything else about that? We can talk more about it after the video if you want, but
That's it. The next, I just gotta figure out doors, and then so in this example, I want to be able to open this door just by using it. I want this to be a push button, and then the door go up, and then this one, I want you to. This is like a portal button where you can stand on it or put a box on it, and then this door will open. So I think that will cover all basic functionality with buttons and doors. Then I want to look at triggers, and then I want to do platforms. So you can make platforms and trains and all that, like in Leadworks. So
cool, awesome.
it's, and for reference, I moved the door stuff. It's gonna be in physics. I think we should have physics stuff and then like basic motion stuff. Motion stuff doesn't use physics, and anything physics related goes in the physics folder, because you might still want simple movement with non-physics for like lights and sprites and other things, or things that you don't like really care about physics, but anything you really care about physics should be in the physics folder. So
Hold
that's
on,
where
I got to do something. I'll be right back.
okay. So yeah, so that's what we want to do, but we have to get the collision to work. I want to do that. I want you to be able to like to click this and then set like the max mass and like the threshold. So you can like say, oh, this is only 5, but I need this to be 10 in order to activate it. So that would actually be kind of cool. But it's more about the collision events. And I kind of want to consolidate a lot of the logic with the component system. And Cyclone, the button mechanic was actually a nightmare. It involved a lot of bounding boxes. And it was really annoying. And I don't want that.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I have no clue how the physics engine work, so I can't help you on this. Sorry.
yeah, I have to run to Josh every time I have a physics issue. Like, it's very like if I have an example to work from, yeah, I'm fine. It's just figuring this stuff out by itself. But yeah, so we just want a simple door that opens, simple rotating door. Like you'd be able to press this button and open the door, and then we want to put the box on the button, and this opens the door there. And then
You've done an amazing job that will turn into Cyclone 2.
All right, Stephen Hawking just showed up.
I was working with another engine for a web project for the work, and they have a function you actually can rotate objects by a duration. I can link you the function if you want.
And you mean by what?
You say you call a function and you set a time parameter into it, and then you can rotate objects, move objects around, and all the stuff.
Using physics or just transforming, just doing the math?
I think they use physics also.
We have the way you can do that is actually, let's see.
But you need to only make one single call and then it's done.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we do have a way of doing that. Let's see. Let's see, physics joint. I'm not streaming right now, but I'm looking at the documentation. If you look at,
it's not that complicated with physics joint. It's just
I know what I'm saying is like the same exact. If you want the same exact thing done, it's not that hard to add a function that kind of wraps up the existing functionality. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, if there's a good case for adding that into the engine, we can do it. What I'm saying is like we do have that functionality.
Right. I don't know. Wait. The only other thing is that crushing works. I have to fix it a little bit, but like I'm not holding the control key, and
it's called tween. It's in Godot.
Okay. Yeah, the kinematic joint is actually that's the way that has the most flexibility because that'll do arbitrary rotations. Yeah, I mean, if feel free to like write a feature thread, and if everybody thinks it's a good idea, we can add that, and it would just create a temporary kinematic joint like behind the scenes to do that.
Yeah, because
I posted in the chat. Yeah,
Okay.
this is the whole thing to move the camera to another position, for example. So first you create a class, then you set the proprietary. For example, the target, so self. It's obviously the entity itself. Then the position, then the position where you want to go, and the duration or the time you want to for this.
Okay.
And
So
then you have
let's see. Stop watching. Share screen.
But yeah, that's all I have. We can discuss other problems after.
Cool. So Yeah, O nine. I'm planning to release 097 on Monday, and that's going to include particles, decals, and then the current implementation of the packaging system. Probably some improvements we can make. And out of all the ideas we discussed today, probably like at this point, I'll have to think about it more. But at this point, I'm thinking like launching the editor itself and running another process that might be that might be what gives us the best results. But I'll have to look at it a little bit closer. But we did have some very good ideas that were brought up today.
Where we are with the particles, can you change the material in the particle editor? Because a lot of properties don't really work. From what I
They
think.
should. Let's see. Everything.
Hmm.
There's one thing I did not do this, and I did not do.
Hmm.
I did not do collision yet, but like the next Steam sale starts on Monday, so I think it's more important to get what we have out, get a stable build out, so that everybody has it, and then immediately continue making more improvements.
Well, can you at least change the
Let's see the German's game. Maybe
material?
he
'Cause I was trying to
implemented the
change it
technology
a
better.
like a week ago, and I couldn't change the material of the particle.
What's that?
I couldn't change the material of the particle.
Okay,
And
well,
then
I'll do some final testing today and just make sure
yeah.
that stuff is
Also,
in.
I probably should put a bug report in, but I have a feeling that the friction dampening, like all like the physics properties, like friction dampening, elasticity, and gravity, especially, don't apply to my object. If I don't see a difference, no matter what I do with the physics. So I don't know if that was reported on, but I can probably put a bug report in.
Unsolved topics. Yeah, if you can put a bug report in, then it'll definitely get looked at.
Yeah, I can't go over what exactly, but I feel like nothing, like everything in that panel is just useless right now.
You have also
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think there might be
No,
some
like
stuff that is not implemented, but like most of it works.
all right. Well,
Sorry, Andy, you were saying something?
yeah. Do you also watched about my bug report about the pick mode? So if you change the pick mode to none in the editor, you insert a new field, yes. And if you change the pick mode then there to none, you are not able to pick it in the editor anymore.
Yeah, I think it's actually. Let's see. I'm aware of this. Let's see. None. Okay, yeah, I am aware of it. All I have to do is it for yeah. All I have to do is just the easiest way to deal with that is to add a little statement inside the source code that says that check does not apply if the editor is being compiled, and so I just have to go through the different entity types and make sure that thing is applied. You can still, you can still pick it that way. But yeah, actually, I think I can probably get that done without any trouble at all. I saw it and I haven't replied yet because I was like, okay, I know that's not going to be a big problem.
Also, something really important is did you got already some feedback from NVIDIA about the memory leak?
They asked me for some source code to produce that. I'm not going to give them the whole engine source code, but I'm going to give them. I'll give them like the file that created it. It's actually like not very complicated. It's really easy to produce the problem. So I need to like back and forth with them a little bit more, and then like worst case scenario is they're going to say, if they tell me that they really need like the source code for a program that produces the problem, then it's not that hard for me to create one with OpenGL. I'd like to avoid that if I can, because that might take like a couple of hours of work to get that working. But I am in communication with them. They're definitely they're very good about fixing they're very good about fixing bugs. So
I think this is something really on which should have high focus.
I'm
Because
very
at the
proud of your
moment, even if
particles.
you have
They look good to
done a
watch.
game, you cannot ship it because
well,
It's-
yeah, I mean that's unavoidable. But they have their schedule where they're. I mean, NVIDIA is a big organization, so there's always like a bit of a delay when stuff like that happens, and it's always inevitable that from time to time driver bugs are going to occur. It will definitely be fixed. They're good about that kind of stuff. I think they usually come out with drivers every like 2 months or so. 6 weeks maybe even every 30 days. Yeah, I'll double check and make sure they're not waiting on me for anything. But yeah, it'll work out, and that's a very, very rare occurrence. Let's see, what else were we going to talk about? One more thing was Ultra GL. Okay. So I've been talking to Kronos a little bit about my ideas of what maybe they should do, and I won't say anything about in detail about that, but I wanted to like throw down. I just spent a couple of hours on this yesterday. I just wanted to see like if I was making OpenGL 5, what would it look like? And I think it would look something like this. You have GL create instance to create an instance of OpenGL 5. It's not really OpenGL 5, but I'm just calling it that. Get count instances, get GL count instance devices gives you the number of devices. And then for each device, you get the device. Okay, it's a GL device. This is something totally new we've never seen before. Now you can get these two strings, the name of the vendor, the name of the renderer, which is basically the model. This correlates to GL vendor and GL renderer, like with GL get strings, except it's on a per device level. And then GL select device. Ooh, this is the instance and the device, and that lets you choose which graphics card to use, which we've never had a command like that in OpenGL. GL create frame buffer, just sending the window handle to it, and then GL delete frame buffer, GL delete instance. Let's run this and see what it does. Intel UHD graphics 630. Okay, so that was I guess the Intel integrated
I am very
chip
proud of your work.
is listed first. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. N equals 1. Let's just select the second one and see what it is. NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1660 Ti. Let's take a look at the source code for this. GL create instance. All of that complexity all gets wrapped up in one command.
And so pretty much you're just making a wrapper for Vulkan.
Yeah, this is using, I don't think I even mentioned Vulkan, but yeah, this is GL select device. All of this Vulkan crap. Blah. And this is like a third of like what the finished thing would be like. All of that doing the same thing like this. And the interesting thing about this that I really want to the point I really want to get across today is that I expected that this would make using an API like this would be much, much easier than just using raw Vulkan code. I knew that. But what I didn't realize is that the implementation, it sounds like, okay, rendering, creating like OpenGL in Vulkan, that sounds like hell. It sounds like, wow, that sounds so difficult because that's going to be called in so many different ways. You don't know how it's going to be used. That sounds almost impossible. That's a huge task, right? But it's actually like when you're making everything flow through that OpenGL as like a gateway between those two complex things, between the application and the Vulkan API, the implementation actually, from what I've seen so far, is actually really, really easy. Like, this is just a proof of concept. I'm not going to dive into this. I'm not going to spend any more time on this right now. I just kind of wanted to see what it would look like. But from what I've seen so far, I actually think like the implementation itself would be way, way easier than writing a Vulkan renderer. Yeah, I think I could probably do this whole thing. I think I could create like my imagining of what OpenGL 5 should be with ray tracing. I think I could do that in like 3 or 4 months with a compatibility layer that made it that made OpenGL 4.6 applications compile with this seamlessly. I think I could do that in 3 or 4 months. I'm not going to, but the point is, right now I don't think this is something that time should be spent on, other than just the little bit of research I did just to see if as a proof of concept. But 6 months from now, this might be something that we want to consider more heavily. I like to do like little bits of research ahead of time, and then let an idea percolate for a long period of time, and then come back to it. And this is something we might, 6 months, a year from now, this is something we might definitely actually want to come back to and consider more seriously, because I think it'll actually like work pretty extremely well, actually.
Neat. Very neat.
Yeah, kind of a neat little extra thing to top off the week.
Yeah, because I was getting scared. It's like, oh, it's gonna take me 3. I could probably write this up 3 or 4 months. Like, don't do that.
No.
You spend so much time dealing with Vulkan.
Right. Yeah, I think the fundamental problem with Vulkan is like application code is very complicated, and Vulkan code is very complicated. If you try to interface those two things directly with each other, then it just creates this extremely complex mesh of code that's extremely easy to break. But what I found is if you reduce that down to 2 simple interfaces, one going from the application to an OpenGL-like paradigm, not exactly like it, but similar, and then another simple interface going from the OpenGL sort of paradigm and commands and structures to Vulkan, dealing with those two things is way, way easier than dealing with a big complicated mess in the middle of those two things. And the idea that like, some people say like Vulkan is fundamentally different structure. You can't port an OpenGL application to Vulkan because you won't get the performance benefits. And I disagree with that completely, because what I have found is once you really get through all the complexity of Vulkan, like underneath the hood, it's almost identical to OpenGL. It's just OpenGL with a lot of extra information that isn't initialized by default. Some of the stuff with Vulkan, now I understand there is some like memory transfer stuff in there that is more optimal in Vulkan. That seems to be where most of the speed is focused on. In my renderers, I have purposely sought to minimize memory bandwidth because that was based on the observation that computational power was increasing about 3 times faster than memory bandwidth. So it made sense to try to reduce that as a bottleneck. And even then, like if you need to drill down into more finely into the Vulkan layer, all that information is right here. Let's take a look at these headers. See, there's your GL device. It's got all the Vulkan stuff there. So you could dip into Vulkan code very easily if you needed to do something specialized. So I don't know. This might be like, this is a possible way forward in the future. It might also be possible that Microsoft comes out with DirectX 13 and they decide that they don't like half of their developers not using the latest version of DirectX. Maybe, as is the case today, maybe they'll come out with something that's a little bit more friendly to developers and more productive. So who knows? But this is one. I think this is a proof of concept of one possible option that could be a very good idea in the future, but not before 1.0, not for the rest of the year for certain.
By an Ultra engine that will speed up its development.
Neat.
Starting to like Vulkan. I think they're both. I think OpenGL and Vulkan are both the same exact thing under the hood. This does make me like Vulkan more, though. I'll tell you that, because yeah, the first thing you have to do with Vulkan is design your own API. And I like the OpenGL approach because it brings sanity to the process, because otherwise it's too easy to go off on crazy tangents. Okay, for the rest of the video, I think that's pretty much all I have to cover today. Do we have any questions or anything else for the remainder of the video?
Yeah, I have one thing to bring up. Sound. Did some experiments. I think having sound being the speaker, or at least a speaker equivalent as an entity would be beneficial.
Why?
Well, all right, I wrote my own entity. Okay.
Okay.
So my entity can save. It automatically saves. So when you do save and load, well, let's start from again. You could parent the entity to any object. So the speaker gets synced with the entity it's parented to in the update matrix function, at least in my source code. So that means if you have like a train or a door or something that's looping, it will just automatically follow that object. You don't have to update its position every frame. Second, my code supports track synchronization. So when you save and load, so if you have like a track playing and you save, and then when you reload that, it will look up where the where that point track is, and then play from there. So you reload from the point of sound where it was saved. Third is with the set filter method, since that's tied to the speaker, and I thought that should be global, but I think you are right that it should be per class, because you might have music be a speaker, but you want to get the sounds in the world to have reverb and all these crazy effects. And what you can do with that is that you can easily create a volume that sets the filters they can change the filters based on if that sound entity is in that volume. So you have more control over sound. It automatically saves and loads things. And you don't have to really worry about positioning, because you would just parent it to an entity and then it would just take off. So that's really good if you have like a car and you want like a muffler sound to come from the muffler, not from the entity, but actually from the muffler sound, and it will just follow the vehicle around, and that's very important for like VR, where that could be more noticeable.
Well, I mean, the entity class right now, it has the ability to emit, any entity can emit the sound, so why wouldn't you just
Right.
emit the
But
sound from the car
you
model
can't-
itself?
You can't get its speakers because speakers are protected, and
I think it
speakers
returns
are,
the speaker, actually. Let's see.
it might, but doesn't the speaker exhaust itself when it's done playing?
That's
If it's a
weird
one,
component.
if it only plays once, then yeah.
Yeah, so the way I had it set up is that I have it's mainly for the filters. So I just check that that point in 3D space is in that volume, and it's like, oh, is it like a world speaker? And it's like, yes, okay, I need you to change this filter to whatever the trigger's set to, and it was just very intuitive. And also, what you can do is you can have footstep sounds be more spatial. So you can have your left foot be on the left side, and then your right foot sounds be on the right side, and that sounds so much more natural.
Well, I mean, wouldn't you? It seems like it would be just as easy to just create a pivot and call emit sound and get the same result.
Right, but then I can't. But then you need to do more fishing around so in your filter. So everything's based on like my filter, my sound volumes.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make sure that the pivot is named something and not just a normal pivot. It's its own entity, so you can do a cast to the class itself, and not, oh, is it named this, or is it extra pivot or whatever.
Why we not creating just a component?
It can't be.
We have an entity component system in the engine.
Yes, but you can't
we should use it.
You can't, with the entity component system, you can't have the same component twice to an entity.
Right.
So you can't. So you can have like an emit sound component, and that's great, but you can't have it make multiple sounds because things make multiple sounds.
But you just could create, for example, for every food you said, you can create an empty and add the component to it.
And check the component. It just, but
that
you
would
have,
be making one component per sound file would be. You could do that, but it would, unless it was very well defined, that might be really.
We would need. I think we would really need to have some list items as inspector fields, so you could set up some sounds into a list, and then you can decide which sound to play.
That's true. You can also, I mean, right now, I mean, if you're okay with a fixed size, I mean, you can just have fields like sound 1, sound 2, sound 3, and just like randomly choose between those. I think Leadworks actually did. I think it might have done some things like that actually.
Yeah, but with the list, you can basically have a vector instead of fixed.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, I agree. That would be an improvement. But it's like, is that more important than particles? I'd say probably not. That's why I spent my time on particles.
No, that's why I'm just bringing it up.
Yeah,
because like when they're done with the doors, I have to implement the sound, and I don't want to redo the sound system. I want a good solution for sound. And the point is, like the point is I want dynamic filtering, and I want to be like, okay, this is my cave. I want it to sound all the sounds in it sound like a cave, and make it in its own entity in 3D space was the easiest and more direct way of doing that, because I don't have to check to see if a component exists in the project. I just have to check if the class exists, and if the class doesn't exist, it doesn't compile. So I mean, I could send you what I have, and you can look at it. But
Yeah, for sure. You guys both make some good points, and I really appreciate like you participating in these conversations because it's kind of difficult sometimes when we're trying to come up with the best overall final design. That's what we want is the best end result, and sometimes we're at the same time like there's like interdependencies, like there's things like Andy is saying like having a list of string values would be very useful, and so we sort of want to plan in anticipation of other things that we have planned, because sometimes there's interaction between these different ideas. For sound filters, I thought we sort of like were. I thought we were discussing. I thought we were kind of planning on having some kind of like global filtering system where like like call it a channel for lack of a better term. You have like one channel for music, one channel maybe for spoken dialogue, one channel for
yes,
user
but
interface sound effects,
yeah,
and then one channel for the game world.
yeah, but that's that's like the layers of sound. But if you have filters set to global, how would you prevent like the menu sound or the music or whatever from not also getting that filter?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then the filters should be applied on a per channel basis. Rather, I think right now they're applied per speaker. Is that right?
Yes, that's why I'm like strong on in the world space. Also,
Yeah,
apparently,
I agree with you. One question is,
mhm,
okay, so oftentimes like you have volumes. You'll have like a volume
mhm,
where you step into it, and
mhm,
then once you're inside that area, then you get like this reverb effect. Like if you walk into an elevator shaft
mhm,
or a hallway, you get this
yeah.
reverb effect. Do we want that to affect? Do we only want that to affect objects that are within that volume, or should it just affect everything that the listener hears that is on the channel that says this is an object, a 3D object in the world?
I think it should be the latter because did you see my videos I posted where I throw a radio into like a little cubby hole and then like the radio plays music and
Yeah, I
then
remember you talking about this. What's your verdict on that?
I think it's more natural because it because the sound still bounces around. I mean, we don't have ray tracing sound bouncing, but the um the sound still bounces around in that area, right?
Hmm.
But by the time it gets to your ear, it's gonna be it's gonna be disturbed because
Hmm.
it's not gonna be clean. So it doesn't make sense where it sounds like it sounds normal. It sounds all normal until you get where it's actually in a cave or whatever, and then
Yeah.
now it sounds muffled.
So,
So
in your experience, is that something that the player will actually perceive?
oh yeah, I have it in a. It's actually I actually have the demo right here. If you want, like, we take a look at it.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen again. Juice. Um, this is a very very weird setup. I was experimenting with like a lot of things, but so I actually
Oh,
already did.
Andy, I think he said he's leaving. Thanks for coming. I'm looking at this. I'd like to discuss your idea for this tween feature in more detail. But
Mhm.
thank you for coming.
Okay. Oh, I don't have the radio set up. But let's see. Hopefully this works. Um, oh, wait, hold on. Let me load it up again. Uh,
We'll do it live, like Bill O'Reilly.
yeah, yeah. All right. Project manager. Oh, I got it imported. Uh,
I'll look for that clip while you do this.
yeah, that's more better. I'm just gonna show the same thing. Plus, I have. No, it's not YouTube. It's It was in here. Hold on. Let me link it.
No, I'm looking for
I did.
Bill O'Reilly.
Uh, um, we can. All right. Let me look and get this.
That's tomorrow. And that is it for us today. Okay, I don't know. Whatever it is, it's not right on the teleprompter. I don't know what that is. I've never seen that.
No, there it is. We are going to do
this is
Sting.
Reap
Yeah.
Blue.
Okay, but
Yeah.
now I can't read it. There's no words on it.
Okay. Ready? Sure.
There's no words there. To play us out. What does that mean? To play us out.
Sting is going to do. It's a video. Sting video.
What is?
For credits.
I don't know what that means. To play us out. What does that mean? To end the show?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, go.
In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it.
Okay. In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with a. I can't do it.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live.
Right.
Fucking thing sucks.
In 5, 4,
You have been
3.
very wise today. There are no
That's
more
tomorrow, and
questions
that
to
is
the
it for us
creator.
today. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks again for watching. We'll leave you with Sting and a cut off his new album. Take it away.
And his final version was like perfect.
Okay, let's see if I can get this.
I always think about that in the context of. Okay, perfect timing.
I got it. It's not. Oh yeah, I broke my pickup system.
We'll do it
No,
live.
Yeah. You know what? We'll do a recording. We'll just do a recording. All right. So here, same thing. So let's say I had everything set up. So I have my footstep sounds. This is a broken pickup system. This is what I was playing with later. Oh, this is the wrong video. But if you scroll ahead, I opened the door. Oh no, this doesn't do sound. And yeah, we are doing it live. Hold on. I uploaded it somewhere. Hold on.
Yeah, and like what we saw in that video with the object moving around, we can actually.
Yeah.
I think you had a lot of elasticity from what I saw in that video you just showed, and I think we can now. We don't have to worry about jitters as much, so I think we can have it more snappy now, like the physics as well, so we don't have those issues.
I'll recreate this demo. Like, all right, so you have the radio playing. You can hear it. It's in 3D. I open the door, and I walk in. It's quiet, but my footsteps are automatically being filtered. I throw the radio in.
Why did I get disconnected?
But it automatically works.
Okay, so the radio is in that area, so the radio now has the filter applied, right?
Correct.
But you're
So-
outside the area, but you still hear the bouncy reverb.
Yep. So how? Oh wait. So how that works is I have this volume here. This is an update version of the map. Before I broke everything. I have an update version of this map. Let's run it. I can't do the. So I'm in this room now. Now it's echoing because that entity, that sound entity, is now parented to the player, and now it's being detected by that trigger automatically.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with the listener's position. In other words, it's just about the sound.
Just about the sound.
Okay, that's very interesting because what that means is that kind of simplifies things. That means that only 3D spatialized objects that exist in the world, only 3D spatialized objects have those reverb effects. That means perhaps only speakers that are maybe only things that are emitted, only sounds that are emitted from an entity are actually would actually need to have any filtering applied at all.
Correct. But this is just a simple box component. I did this in C++, so give me a minute. I have to pull this up now. And this is actually just a Lua app with classes. So I did this in here.
So we can automatically eliminate sound filtering from any stereo sounds, I think.
Mm-hmm. I believe so. I mean, why would you want filter unless you want like weird? Yeah, because you want all the sounds in 3D space to have a filter on it, but the only like 2D sounds you want is UI and ambient sounds.
I can think of a reason why you would want it on the sound, actually, or on the music. Like if you're doing some kind of like screwed up like bullet time kind of thing, like you see in like Cyberpunk 2077, when you go into like an alternate world and everything's like the music becomes all like, sounds like it's underwater.
Oh, okay.
That you might actually want to do, but okay.
Yeah, so all this does is it just updates its position. It just creates a speaker, puts it in 3D world, and just updates its position. I also have my entity loads sound materials because I think that's a cleaner way of storing sounds as a sound material. Mm-hmm. And then in my filter components, in my filter, I think it's under sound volume right here. So all I'm doing here in my sound volume, I'm just doing a bounding box check here. I'm just searching for my speakers, and whatever is in that volume, it gets added, and then it actually maintains. This class actually maintains like filters pre-applied and then applied by the sound filter. So
yeah, so you're doing exactly what I was just thinking, like the engine might do under the hood.
Right.
So you're taking like a volume approach to sound filters instead of this is completely different from the channel kind of idea we were talking about.
Right.
I think I like your approach. I think this is probably the best approach.
Yeah, so I think I can send this over and you can take a look at. I'll send over like my sound materials idea too. I think that's a great idea because you can. So with sound materials, you can actually make like a sound material, and then you can say like make random. My sound materials support random sounds, so every time you play a sound, it could be like random. So that could be footstep sounds, that could be impact sounds, that could be other things you might want randomized. And you can just have it play, or you can say, hey, play sound 0, play sound 1. It's very direct. But yeah, this is just an entity. And I also exposed it to Lua. So
okay, I have a question. Do you think that we have this like sound filter volume idea? Mm-hmm. Do you think that should be done as a component that comes with like stock with the software, or do you think that should be
like in the engine,
like a command in the like a class in the engine?
That's a good question. Like I feel like we need see there's gonna be two types of triggers. There's gonna be a collision trigger where it detects collision events, and then and then it manages like, oh, are we touching? Have we been touched? Is it the last object to be touched? Whatever. That's all collision. And then we have to have box triggers, which is just bounding box stuff. So we can detect things like projectiles, sprites, particles, things that don't have physics. So I would make this a volume, like a box trigger. And then, but I think anything
brushes are a good way to handle that because they're a volume of arbitrary. I mean, it has to be convex, but that allows you to set, and it's a little bit more sophisticated than just a bounding box.
Right, it is. But the thing with bounding boxes is if it's like a weird shape or whatever, the bounding box will be bigger than the actual shape. It won't be as accurate as a collision trigger. So maybe we want like a volume pool in the editor where you can, I don't know. I don't know that answer.
Okay.
But there's going to be situations where people are going to be like, "Oh, I'm in this cave. I want it to sound like a cave. How do I do it?" We can make it a component that pretty much just copy and pastes this. And because this is an entity and not just a component and with a speaker attached to it, I can just search for speaker right here. It's just, oh, I also have a container class. Don't ignore that. All this container class does is just simplify. It just makes store an object. It's just a helper class. But I just say, all right, find this speaker. All right, it's not. Wait, add sound speaker home. Let me see. That's not what I want. Oh, here. Search for speakers. When it does the entities in area, it just does a cast to the sound speaker class. You can probably rename it. I'm really bad at names. And then it looks for the entity's children, and it also looks for just the entity as itself. So again, you can parent this sound to 3D entities, and then as long as that point is in that volume, it will just emit it. Like it would just work.
Be fine. In Leadworks, I would have been a little bit like under some situations, this might not have been a good idea because in Leadworks, each bone was an entity. In Ultra, the bones are a separate hierarchy system, so this is actually perfectly fine. We have this nice component system, and it's a very standardized way of doing things.
Right.
And we have a way of efficiently gathering all of the entities in an area. So, by default, I do favor using the component system since we have it, and it doesn't require like.
Well, I think it adds more opportunities, right? So, the idea approach I'm going when I build my components is I want them to be like Lego bricks, where someone just installs the engine, doesn't know anything. They could just grab, look through the documentation, look through like what each component does, and then they can make their own contraption and put components together to do something, to do things like, if I want like a radio here, I don't know why that's sticking. This radio here is just a model. This is the old name, but let's say like an interactive component, and it's like on interaction, on trigger, this is a switch, and then the switch on only once. So only first time I pick this up, it's gonna play this world sound, which is pretty much just loads of sound material and multiplies the values of that sound material. And it'll just play it once when I pick it up. And it's just one entity, one flow graph thing. But I made this out of 3 different components. But you can split this up.
I see 3. Yeah.
Yeah, and that interchangeability, I think that's very important because I'm a big fan of don't repeat yourself programming, dry programming, and I think the component system is a good supplement for that because it'd be like, oh, I made a timer for this class, and in Leadworks, I actually had to copy and paste that code if I wanted that timer to be in a different actor. Well, here I can be like, well, I already have this component. I'll just link it to this component, and every time it resets, I can just trigger this component, and I don't have to write timer code ever again at that point. So, and if there's a bug with the timer code for some reason, we can isolate it and we can fix it, and it'll automatically fix everything.
Yeah, I like it. I especially like the physics stuff that we worked out this week. That was really
Yeah.
cool, and it feels really good to have like
Yeah.
a solution to a long-standing difficult problem like that.
Yeah. Hopefully you can look at doors. One thing I also tried with doors, I want outputs to fire when the door is fully opened or fully closed. I did this in Cyclone, and what you can do is that when it's fully opened, you can disable the physics. So crazy players won't
Yeah.
push the the door around and such. And that's what I did in Cyclone. The doors actually disable physics once they're fully closed.
Well, how do you, I think you can just detect that because either when it comes to arrest or when the difference between the current position or rotation and the destination falls below some threshold.
Well, in Cyclone, like it was like the joint angle. I think you get the limits.
Yeah, I don't think it ever hits it exactly.
Yeah, I could get it to detect a fully closed position, but I couldn't, or fully open position, but I couldn't get it. No, I think it was fully closed. It was one or the other. It was like I can detect fully opened or fully closed, but I couldn't detect the other way around because it like thought it was fully opened when it wasn't even opened at all.
Well, I think you have to. Yeah, I think it doesn't. Like if you set the destination to 90 degrees, for example, I think it'll stop at like 89.99999 and then come to rest without ever actually reaching that. So I think you need like a threshold of like a couple of maybe half a degree or something like that.
Wouldn't you just use the round function so it rounds up to 90?
If you want your threshold to be 0.5, yes.
Well, let's see. There was code here. I think I commented that. Hold on. Let me Give me a second. You can close this out. Right. No. Oh, hi, right here. So this code. So it will detect this code right here. This code, it will detect when a door is fully closed.
Mm-hmm.
But when I did the same trick here for fully opened, probably because of this threshold right here, like it works here but not here when it's fully opened. I wanted to. It sets a bool off, and then it says, "Hey, set mask to 0," so players don't, jam a box in it, and the door gets all crazy. So I'm going to re-implement the sliding door today. I'm going to need you to look at the swinging door because that doesn't work for some reason, but the sliding door I know does work. And I want to implement this feature where you can detect if this door is fully opened or fully closed.
Yeah. Well, this in Ultra and Leadworks, for the most part, they're using the same physics code underneath the hood. There's been quite a lot of improvements I made to the implementation in Ultra, but also like Leadworks has been used more heavily. So if there are any like weird issues with physics, then they're usually pretty easy to fix.
Yeah, that's why I decided to do all my component building in Xform this way. I have that direct communication with you. Like, hey, I'm trying to do this.
Fine
by
me.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, and then again, we're doing this stuff so no one else has to. So they could just add a door and not worry about how it works. So
yeah, and it's fun stuff. I really like the I like physics. It's fun to.
I get so annoyed. I miss. That's the thing with like Leadworks, your engines, and other engines is that people need to. I think we need to teach or whatever. Like in other engines, you just move an object you just translate the object, and the physics just updates automatically. With like your engines, however, it's like, oh, you want it to move in the physics world where you have to attach a joint to it. Like it adds that layer of complexity.
Well, yeah, that's similar to what Andy was saying, and it's like we can change that. I would never.
It's a trade-off, huh? Because
no, what I'm saying is like they're doing the exact same stuff that we do underneath the hood. They're just hiding it. I mean, if you
Right.
want, like, we can add commands like that. Like what he was saying, like that render twinning thing. I mean, that's like, that's probably like less than 20 lines of code to do that.
Right.
It's just, you guys have to tell me. And a lot of times, like, people decide I get a lot of variety of things that people have decided are very important.
Yeah, I know.
And it's like we had some like this morning, and it's like suddenly everybody decides that this is a critical issue and they want it solved like immediately. And it's like, well, wait a minute, hold on, we need to there needs to be a design phase first. We have to figure out like what the right solution is and what we actually want. So I mean, if that's something you guys want, then okay, let's start designing that and decide what it should be doing rather than
Maybe you should bring back set physics positions, set physics rotation back to the API, and then it just does all the joint things under the hood.
Okay, so the next question is, if it's done that way, that's like 6 lines of code maybe. Because all that does is it adds a force in between the current position to make it move to the desired position.
Mm-hmm.
But then, do you want what's the next step? Do you want, if it moves from the current position to the desired position, did it just pick up inertia? Does it keep moving? Like the next frame? Or is it locked there in position?
I would think people would just want I think a better sliding door would just be to be like, all right, here's point A, here's point B. I want the location of the entity to go from point A to point B when during the open command, and then instead of actually like making a slider joint and everything. And then once it's done, the joint goes away. The physics, if it has to like update, if it has to like get mass, the mass gets reset, and it's done. Like you just moved. It's like the move commands, but with physics, I guess.
What happens if something blocks its path?
Well, then it just gets stuck like if it was a joint.
Okay. Okay, so what we're talking about is like as a general concept, what we're talking about is the creation of temporary joints.
Correct.
For handling motion over a period of time.
Right.
Okay.
And the benefit is that component code can be a lot messy on the end user side. And if they want to if they want to still play with joints and physics, they should be free to. But if you just need something to go from point A to point B, so like a platform, right? You can just make points or entities or pivot points in 3D space, and then instead of writing a joint, and then every time it gets to a destination, you unlatch the joint, and then you have to make a new joint to the new destination. You can just say, just go from point A to point B to point C, and it will just do that automatically with just set physics position or something.
Okay. Well, okay. If you do that with a door, for example, once that door closes, if the player walks up to it and bumps into it, it's going to fall over, right? Because it's just a.
Well, if the physics, let's say the motion's done with it, the physics will reset to wherever it was, and then the joint will go away. So it will just become static. So if you have
okay, so what is the mass while it's in transit? How do you decide that?
Then maybe that should be determined by the actual size of the object. No, because mass is just how much space an object
Okay.
takes
Well,
up.
it's the volume and the density, right?
Hmm.
So the volume we can actually calculate for any physics object, for the collider itself. The density of the material is a factor. Yeah, I mean when you so okay, now we do have a better defined idea of what you're talking about, but like yeah, like when you say something simple like, oh, I want a command to make something go from here to here, there's like when you dig into the detail, there's a lot of details that go into that. I tend to not favor the idea of temporarily changing the mass of objects because
Right.
that you're going to get so many commands, the command parameters that suddenly like it stops being simple.
Right. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of ways to make it so that this is not like this doesn't have to be how you make a door. You know what I mean?
I don't have
a
a
lot of
problem
people,
with this for Doors, but I could see it being useful for other. I think I think it could be a useful idea for some other things.
right. I mean, it's not critical. It's just something I like going from working with Legworks and then working with Ultra.
Hmm.
It's like sometimes it's just like I just need to go from I just need a simple motion. Why do I have to make
Yeah.
like joints and have to check angles and have to do this and well, in other
Um,
engines, it's just like, oh, you want something to go from this position to this position? Oh, you just set position to this, and then you don't. And the physics aspect and the joint aspect is just it's just transparent to the end user.
well, the nice thing
Even
about this stuff is we can experiment with this idea without
right,
implementing it in the engine source code.
correct.
And
We could just
then
make
if it
a
turns out that
static
it is a
function.
really good idea, then then that's something we could build into
Yeah,
the engine.
we could just make a static function right now that takes an entity
Okay.
parameter,
Yeah.
and then we can just run a few main files and then see if that works.
Yeah, let's try it and see what happens, and then I think there'll be like other questions that sort of raises once we see
Right.
it actually
Because
working.
again, because the problem is to simplify moving and out. Because a lot of people are going. Because I think we ran into some users who were like, "Oh, I just want to move an object across the scene, but it doesn't push any of my objects. What's going on?" I'm just trying to avoid those like.
Well, there's also situations where that's the majority of the time. Actually, I'd say that's probably the desired behavior for the
Right.
majority of all objects that are in motion. I mean, you have a lot of motion in games that isn't just physics.
Right. No, I'm
Um,
just saying because it's just like that distinction because the other engines you don't have to worry about that, and then in your
Yeah.
engine you do.
I mean, the important thing is we have the underlying mechanism to implement anything like that. So yeah, let's. I'm certainly open to playing with ideas like that.
Right.
Regarding the first-person shooter stuff, we haven't been able to actually pick up our weapons in a couple of weeks because I messed everything up. But I was thinking like, I think we should just like skip all the inventory ideas that we were talking about
Hmm.
because we were trying to make something that was a little bit too broad.
Right. I think we should just worry about a first person shooter thing. We can have like inventory slots, but they'll just be it kind of just be like your run the mill first person shooter where it's just an array of components you pick from, and then you can scroll down and pick them.
Yeah, I'm thinking the inventory stuff is like something to keep in mind while designing it, but I don't think we need to. I don't think we should attempt to design something right now that doesn't change in the future with the addition of an inventory system. I think that should just be beyond our scope.
Well, what about the idea of like a backpack system where
That's what I'm saying is I think it's too complicated right now, especially
okay.
when you're trying to like it's getting beyond my ability to like imagine like in the abstract.
No, yeah, I think we should just worry about first the FPS one. The only thing I'm gonna need from you from that if anything, is how to set the matrix projection of the weapon.
Oh yeah,
Bas-
yeah. We need to add that. Okay.
I thought it's in. Well, not
No,
code
it's not in there yet.
Yeah. So
I might have added the command, but the
I
the
think you added the commands, but not the not the actual.
implementation. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going through all the components now. I'm surrounding everything around the FPS player. So I have two terminologies. If you grab something, that means it's physics. If you pick up something, that means it's like you're picking up ammo or a health kit or
That makes sense.
yeah. So
Because you call them pickups.
So you call
You don't
this
call them
pickup.
grabs.
Yeah. So in my so in the source code for this, that's why I say grab and
A health grab.
yeah. So you pick so how would you put a weapon in the scene is that you would put in interactive I don't know if you should derive the interactive component or you should make it like how I have it here where not here, but we actually have a separate like function here. I'll probably just inherit it because you want to be able to grab the object if your ammo's full. So if you press E on it and you're low in ammo, the object will delete and then all that ammo will be stored into your ammo count.
Right.
If you're full, instead of not doing anything, it should be like Half-Life 2, we just pick up the actual prop and you can move it around and such.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Then it just becomes like a physics object at that point. Okay, so you made it so that every object that can be picked up has a component to enable that behavior. What do you think about just doing it by mass? Like have like a maximum mass of objects the player can pick up.
And you can pick up sliding doors in motion.
Not if they're heavy enough.
Well, sometimes. Then that's. Well, also I did it that way. If I can load the map again.
Well, okay, it's like the majority of objects are. The vast majority of objects with mass that are strewn about the level, you would have to have like basically a prefab for everything, because that's the only way that you could make that object grabbable.
With this approach, I thought that was like the intent, where you just make things in you make. I thought this was supposed to like elevate the prefab system, where people will just make their prefabs and then they can use that prefab wherever they want, and they can pick what functionalities they want. I also like this method because you can enable and disable this functionality through the flow graph system. So if you want someone to not be able to grab something if something else was happening over here, you can just disable it, and then you can't interact or grab with it.
I know, but it's like just dropping some models into the scene, setting their mass.
Yeah,
that's such a common behavior.
Yeah, I mean, well, what?
Maybe we should have an option for whether it's explicit or not. You know.
Well, or we can do something with the tag system.
Or maybe it's pick-upable, it's grabbable by default, unless I don't know. Maybe it's something that has to be opted out of, in other words.
Maybe. But see, I just did this way because it's just like, oh, the functionality is already here. I'm just gonna connect it real quick. You know what I mean? That's why I did it like that.
Well, for doors, I think it totally makes sense.
Yeah, because sometimes you just want. Yeah, because sometimes you just want a door just to open on command, or you have like fire doors, right? And then you press the button, and then the doors swing open, and then the monsters come out, and then after you're done with the monsters, you can open and close the doors, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like this actually quite a lot. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it's just with grabbable stuff, pickup stuff.
I could see that becoming tedious.
Yeah, like in Cyclone, I did it by. I had a whole list of predefined notions of, can I grab this? Like it had to be like a certain mass. It had to have It had to have a shape. It had to not be. It had to like not have a joint attached to it. It had to, you know,
Okay,
it was like
just a moment.
mass.
I'll be back in a second.
All right, no problem. All right, boring everyone here. That's okay. Why would I do that, Tom?
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, so I understand you just want to be able to drop objects in and just, if they have a mass, you want to be able to pick them up. So now we just got to figure out what would that look like. So here is where we interact with the component. So the interactive component has a bool function called allow pickup, and if it's the allow pickup, we grab the entity.
So that
and
could
we
be
fire-
used to opt out of that behavior.
Right. So if we make like a condition, so yeah, but what do we use to opt out on? Do we use? All right. What about this? Well, should we do if it's not an interactive component and it has mass? But then when the door has mass applied to it and it's opening, then you can grab it.
Interact with component. Attempt allow pickup. So
This is a bool function.
what calls interact with component? Where is that called?
That is called. After I do my ray tracing.
There it is. If else nothing found. So if there's no valid component, then just treat it as like an object that then just call it grab entity. If the mass is if the mass is greater than 0 and less than some threshold for the heaviest object they can pick up.
I would just and get mass. So we can say it's greater than 0, and no, I don't know if you can do that here. It's gonna say and get mass. It's like less than like let's say like
10
50
kilograms or 50 kilograms. I don't know how much a kilogram is, but
let's do 50.
Okay.
Okay,
and then grab entity.
Random entity.
What do you think about that?
My only concern is with doors when they're in motion.
Well, you just make the door. Oh, you can. Well, one way to do that is to.
Wait, no, because what if? Is there a way to check? Wait, what if
you can iterate through the object's joints and see if it has a joint that is connected to nothing.
Why don't we just do this?
It's empty.
If it's just an object placed in the scene and has no.
Well, there are other situations where you might have a that is one possibility. You're right. I would say do it by joints. If the object has a joint and the other entity in the joint either has 0 mass or doesn't exist, because you can have a joint between an entity and nothing, in which case it's just treated as an infinitely heavy object.
I can't. Is there a function to get joints?
I think you can access the joints.
Maybe not.
Number, maybe.
I don't know.
That might have been. I might have done that in Leadworks actually.
This here, but it's probably protected or private.
I'm not sure.
Yep, protected.
Okay, I can expose that.
Or just get joints and then.
Yeah, I would just make it a read only like static version of that points to that. We can do that.
But my only like counter argument to that is that what happens if you want I'm thinking like you have all these like you have like a hinge joint, right? You have a light hanging from the ceiling, right? Should you be able to grab like that light and just like pull it and whatever?
I'd say that's an edge case, and once you get into that kind of behavior, at that point, you probably just want to modify the stock components to do exactly what you want, maybe.
So we want like NC get joints is empty, and then we want like this, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you could also have like you might pick up like what if you have an object that's like that has a joint between two things, and like a nunchuck, and you want to pick up one side of it.
Yeah,
you could do that. So that's why I'm saying like check for non-zero mass or or non-existence of the opposing object. Maybe if you want to drill into it more finely. But actually, like if you just say like if it has any joints, that's probably good enough, because I mean that's. Again, like we shouldn't design things for like the edge case, because all of this stuff can be modified for by the end user. So maybe we should just keep it simpler.
Like that, and then all right. So you want something like this if it's empty, if the mass is.
Yeah.
I don't know if this will actually work, but
it'll work.
I'm just gonna put this in parentheses.
Oh, the get joints might not, but I think that's just going to be a member that you can access.
Yeah, and then you can, and then this way you can just grab. I'm just gonna call this like let's code for grabbing check without the need of a component. I might actually put this. It might not make sense, but it might be better to put it here. This way I can do the else if here and then do the check here. This way is still. Wait, no, I can't because I need subjects. Yeah, you're right. It should be here. But since this doesn't really compile, I'll comment that out.
You can just comment out the joints piece. Just do the do a slash and then a star.
I could just do that.
I didn't know there was a toolbar button for that.
It's a toolbar, and it's like Control K.
Huh. Yeah, that'll work for now.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's test this in action. All right, I'm going to remove the interactive component. So this is just an object. And that's where I was. And we're going to play it. Okay. So, works. Oh. Crash.
Ah! Oh. Okay.
I don't know why
cool.
it crashed.
All right.
Wait, it must be something because I'm dropping it, but whatever. I'm just gonna undo everything right now. We'll come back to it when we have that functionality and we can play with it.
Okay. If we're I'll ask for like final questions before I stop the video. Let's see.
Oh, that's right. You're recording and you have no you have no hard drive space.
No, it's saving it onto another drive. It's just my main drive that has no space. Let's see if there's any questions in the chat. Before Sting plays us out. Play it out? What does that mean? What does that mean? Do we have any questions? Final questions before Sting plays us out? Let's see if we can get Bill O'Reilly on here again. All right, so I'll finish with
3,
Yep. So I'm
That's
just gonna
tomorrow, and
do
that is it
doors
for us today. I'm
today.
Bill
I
O'Reilly.
get to sign
Thanks
go
again
back
for
in.
watching. We'll leave you with Sting and a cut off
I'll
his new
send
album.
you
Take it
my
away.
sound stuff so you can take a look at it. And yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start playing out. I'm gonna start playing that video at the end of every single video. Take us away. By the way, if you're watching this video on YouTube and you'd like to help support the channel, go ahead and press the like button, please. Also, Steam reviews are super helpful. At some point in the near future, and we're getting pretty close to 1.0, guys. I'm going to go back to Valve and tell them, like, okay, that thing I told you about 6 months ago, we have it now. It's ready. It's really good for your VR ecosystem, especially, and we would like perhaps to be featured in some special sale, which would definitely help the engine. I just want to, like, once we get to that 1.0 point, we want to maximize the impact of that. So Steam reviews are extremely helpful. If we can get up to 20, that would be super great, because it just makes it easier for me to talk to Valve if I can show them that that there's the solid rating, because it's a weighted average. So it's not just the average, it's the number of reviews that are on Steam. It really helps a lot. So really appreciate it, guys. If there are no other questions, then I will close the video here.
No, I'm good.
Let's see. Stop recording.